Good evening. Welcome to the December 14th, 2020 meeting of the Historic Zoning Commission. Call the meeting to order. For the commissioners, please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker. Susan Besser. Jeff Carson. Mike Hathaway. Brian Laster. Lisa Marquardt. Mary Pierce.
Present.
Ken Scalf.
Present.
Thank you. And Jim Roberts, present. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2020-262, a resolution declaring that the Historic Zoning Commission shall meet on December the 4th, 2020. And I think the newspaper recorded this as November 14th, but it's actually December 14th. 2020, and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location, because it is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Brian. Oh, Mr. Hathaway, you do it.
Thank you very much. Move for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Then I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Brian. All right, please respond then to the motion made by Mike and seconded by Brian. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. To prevent the spread of COVID-19 and protect the health, safety, and welfare of City of Franklin officials, staff, and citizens, the Historic Zoning Commission will restrict physical access in the meeting room to a small number of staff members due to current limitations on public gatherings. Accommodations have been made to ensure the public is still able to participate in the meeting. The public may participate in the following ways: watch the meeting on Franklin TV, watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts. The public may also call into the conference meeting at 312-626-6799, meeting ID 916-1896-7694, passcode 434433. Callers will be unmuted and given the opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. Limited viewing will be made available in the lobby of City Hall to watch the live video. The public may email comments to planning intake at franklintn.gov to be provided in full to the commission and included in the minutes, but not read aloud in their entirety during the meeting. Emailed comments will be accepted until noon on the day of the meeting. Share your official comment with the agenda item number specified in the comment section of the Facebook or YouTube live video. Now we're to the point of entertaining a motion to approve the November 9th, 2020 meeting, which were distributed with your packets. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chair, so moved. Ken Scalf.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second, this is Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. Are there any non-agenda items to be placed on the agenda?
No, but I do have a staff announcement.
You may want to.
But I do have a staff announcement, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
I do want to remind everyone that we are thanking both Jeff Carson and Michael Hathaway for their esteemed service here on the commission over the last several years. Jeff has served for 5 and Mike has served for many more. I was pulling up the date, but got distracted. I think he's been on the commission for about 10 or 11 years now.
1800.
I'm sorry, 1,800 years? Yeah, that sounds about right. Yep, many, many hours from both of them. And we are just very, very grateful for their service. Working on the Historic Zoning Commission takes a lot of personal commitment as a community volunteer, and we are going to miss you both. So I do have Mayor Moore here who'd like to say a few words as well.
Yeah, well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to be at the Historic Zoning Committee tonight. And Jim, I love the way you run a meeting.
Well, thank you.
Nice job.
It just, I'm sitting in your chair, Mayor, so that's why I guess it just rubs off on me.
Well, it's also the chair that continually drops down, so you got to watch it. But,
I'll try to remember that.
I want to thank everybody, all the members of the Historic Zoning Committee tonight. It's been a tough year for all of us in a lot of different ways as far as challenges for things that have come to the commission, and just a tough year overall with COVID and the loss of some important people in our community. I want to first of all thank Jeff. Jeff, I think I appointed you about 5 years ago, and I appreciate your time and effort in working on historic zoning, and I hope we'll get you back on some other city committees, commissions, or whatever in the future, maybe when your time allows you to be a little freer. But we appreciate that service, and you have served with distinction.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
But now I'm going to switch to Mike. I did a little thing for him the other night in the board meeting, thanking him for his 15 years of service, which some days I'm sure felt like many, many more years. Mike has not only served on the Planning Commission, and the chair of the Planning Commission, but has served on historic zoning for a long time. And as you look around Franklin, you're going to notice a lot of Mike's handprints, thumbprints, or drawings, or whatever, or designs. Mike, you've made a huge impact on our community, and you've also made a huge impact as far as your advice and counsel on the Planning Commission and the Historic Zoning Commission. We're going to miss you so much, but we know that you're around to continue to advise us whenever we have difficult cases. And we also know that you're going to continue to bring some great designs to the city on projects you're working on. So just for a little fun, I am the Santa's elf tonight, and just want to bring a little humor to you, Mike, and thank you so much for your service, and look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. I appreciate it. And I love the hat.
And I would like to thank both Jeff and Mike. Mike especially has been, as long as I've been, and it's been, I think, 7 years now that I've been on this thing, he's brought a lot of good wisdom to some of our deliberations. And I am one that's very grateful for that. And Jeff, we'll miss you being on here. We've had a pretty, I think this full year, we've had a pretty cohesive group, and I'm appreciative of all of you for your participation, and especially you two who are rolling off tonight. So thank you both.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Enjoyed serving with all of you.
Okay, are there any citizens that wish to comment on items not on the agenda this evening?
Jim, if just a minute, I could say something about Mike Hathaway has been behind the scenes in 1,000 ways over his time in Franklin, both when he was on the commission and before. And I just want to say that him being on Franklin's team has meant a lot to historic preservation over the years. And of course, Jeff, loved getting to know you too.
Thank you, Mary.
Is this a eulogy? It sounds like I'm dying.
It's getting close, isn't it? Okay, anybody else have any other comments before we move on?
You can be around to hear, right?
I feel like Mark Twain.
All right. Now, are there any citizens that wish to comment on items not on the agenda for tonight? Kelly Dennisfelter, you got anybody on the line?
There's only one caller on the line that isn't identified. If you would like to speak, please unmute yourself or hit *6.
It's Kathy.
Okay, no public comment.
Okay,
Nope.
great. All right, we'll move on then. Our first item tonight is consideration of alterations, dormer construction at 810 West Main Street. Amanda McCrary, the applicant, and the staff presentation will be by Kelly Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could please share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Got it.
Great. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a dormer at 810 West Main Street. The proposed shed dormer is located on the second story of the dwelling on the right side elevation. The applicant appeared before the Design Review Committee at its November 16th meeting. The proposed shed dormer has wood siding and will include 2 wood windows. The dormer is located on the side elevation of the dwelling and obscured from public view. Stylistic elements are compatible with the existing dormer located on the rear of the dwelling. The scope of work also includes the in-kind repair of existing historic wood windows and the replacement of the existing rear deck and stairs. The proposed window repair and deck replacement are consistent with the guidelines. The guidelines recommend that dormers be added to rear or side elevations with minimal visibility and to use designs, materials, and scale in keeping with the building character. The proposed windows are consistent with the guidelines, which state that addition windows should relate to the window materials found on the existing structure and recommend against the placement of new window openings onto primary or readily visible secondary elevations. The guidelines also recommend that new windows have historic profiles and dimensions. The dormer design, location, and materials are consistent with the guidelines. It is recommended that the Historic Zoning Commission approve with conditions the proposed dormer construction as follows. The windows on the dormer addition must have historic profile and dimensions and consist of either wood or a composite material with the appearance of wood. The window specifications must be approved by the preservation planner or the commission prior to issuance of a building permit. And the application must meet all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to the issuance of a building permit. And any additional changes to the approved plans must be returned to staff or the commission for review and approval. Thank you.
Amanda McCreary, I saw you on there a minute ago. Are you like to make some comments on the application?
Hey guys, it's Amanda here. Yes, so we're looking at putting a dormer. We didn't really change the design from our DRC discussions, just called out some existing materials. Do note, like we said in the DRC, the one thing that's interesting about this project, the dormer is on the rear and the right side, but we are showing mitered corners as opposed to a trim board on the dormer. And that is because the existing sunroom that you can see on the second floor when looking at this elevation that Kelly has shared has mitered corners as well. And the first floor addition has mitered corners. So we're being consistent with those items. But other than that, I don't have any additional things to add.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on this application? Hearing none, then we'd like a motion. So we begin discussion. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Brian.
Thank
I
you.
move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed dormer construction.
All right, thank you.
Second, this is Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion, questions? We ready to vote? Okay, please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Jeff Carson,
Aye.
Mike Hathaway,
Aye.
Brian Laster,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce,
Aye.
Ken Scalf. Ken Scalf,
Aye.
thank you. And Jim Roberts, aye. Okay, Amanda, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, our next item is consideration of partial demolition principle and addition to the principle at 422 Boyd Mill Avenue. Kelly Gibson, I think we're back to you.
All right, can everyone see my screen again?
Yes.
Great. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for a series of work at 422 Boyd Mill Avenue as follows. Demolition of the rear enclosed porch and carport and a single-story addition to the rear elevation of the house. So we're going to consider the partial demolition first. The applicant appeared before the Design Review Committee at its November 16th, 2020 meeting. The proposed partial demolition consists of the existing enclosed porch and carport located on the rear elevation of the house. The applicant included photographic documentation for the proposed partial demolition in the application materials. The construction date of the enclosed porch and carport are unknown, but the building portions do not appear to be historic. The guidelines recommend against the demolition of historic buildings and structures. In this case, the proposed demolition is limited to the porch and carport and will not have an adverse impact on the district. It is recommended that the commission approve with conditions the proposed partial demolition as follows. The applicant must meet all of the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of a building permit. Any additional changes to the approved plans must be returned to the commission for review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to comment on this? And we're going to do this in two motions, one for the addition and one for the demolition.
Hello. Yes. I have no, this is Matt Smith. I have no comments regarding the demolition aspect. I think the description's been clear.
Okay. All right, Matt, thank you. Are there any citizens which comment on this portion of the application? All right, hearing none, then we'd like a motion on the demolition.
Mr. Chair, this is Kelly. I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed partial demolition.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Any discussion on the demolition? Okay, hearing none, well, then please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Jeff Carson,
Aye.
Mike Hathaway is recusing himself on this item. Brian Laster,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce,
Aye.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts, aye. Okay, now we're ready for the addition.
Okay. The proposed addition includes
Kelly, would you? Oh, sorry.
Kelly Gibson's going to go ahead, Matt. All right, Kelly.
the proposed addition includes new wings to the home and a screen porch. The addition will be clad in cement fiber, hardy siding with a 7-inch reveal. The addition is differentiated through a minor roof break, inset, and a material change, and includes new windows on both elevations. The windows appear to have historic dimensions, but the applicant did not include window specifications in the application materials. Architectural details, including the windows, window grids, and trim, are consistent with the historic portion of the home. A small band of foundation brick on the addition will match closely to the color of the existing stone on the home. The addition represents a 59% increase to the existing building footprint, and the proposed building coverage is 8%. The guidelines state that additions should support the historic character of the district and recommend that additions be placed on rear or obscured elevations. Furthermore, the guidelines recommend avoiding approaches that unify the existing structure and new construction into a single unified whole. Differentiating methods such as roof breaks, insets, offsets, and material changes should be incorporated into the design to separate existing construction from new construction. The location of the addition on the rear elevation of the home and the use of building insets, a roof break, and a material change to differentiate the new addition from the historic home are consistent with the guidelines. The proposed building materials are also consistent with the guidelines, which recommend that additions be compatible with the proportions, form, materials, and details of the building. Lap siding should be consistent with the principal and adjacent historic buildings. The use of a 7-inch lap reveal is mostly consistent with the guidelines, as there are examples of homes with a wider lap reveal located on the street, and the context of the neighborhood lends itself to this style of reveal. The guidelines recommend that the square footage of additions be limited to no more than half of the existing footprint, and that maximum building coverage should not exceed 35%. The proposed addition is consistent with the guidelines for building coverage, but the footprint size, 59%, is larger than the recommended 50%. For this reason, the proposed addition size is not consistent with the guidelines. It's recommended that the commission deny the proposed addition with the following. If issued a COA, the application must meet all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of a building permit. If issued a COA, the windows must have historic profiles and dimensions and consist of either wood or a composite material with the appearance of wood. The window specifications must be approved by the preservation planner or the commission prior to issuance of a building permit, and any additional changes to the approved plans must be returned to staff or the commission for review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant then like to comment on this portion of the application?
Yes, sir. While the new to existing roof ratio is 59% in excess of the recommendation of 50%, we are asking for consideration based on the following. Number one, the large lot size is 1.23 acres and a low lot area coverage ratio of 8%. This ensures ample open space around the house. The proposed addition does step back from the main house so that it is very minimally visible from the street, as you may have noticed in the proposed perspective views. The design was modified following the DRC comments made in order to further differentiate the proposed new addition from the existing and to step it back from the plane of the existing house. And thirdly, the scale and design of the proposed addition is appropriate to the existing home. With the front elevation view, no portion of the addition is visible. The owners, I've worked closely with them in developing a design. They really love living in Franklin and living in the historic center. and they look forward to continuing to raise their growing family here. And I worked with them to develop a plan that complies with the spirit of the historic zoning guidelines and respects the original house, but while bringing the house up to date to meet today's functional requirements. So I hope that the committee takes these points into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any citizens that wish to comment on this portion of the application? Okay, hearing none, let's have a motion then on the addition.
I'll make a motion. This
Okay.
is Lisa. I move to deny a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed addition based on staff analysis and recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Susan. Thank you, Susan. Discussion.
I'm actually for approving this because of the reasons that Matt stated, that there's very limited public view shed and the addition's subservient to the historic resource, and there's also such low lot coverage. So I was kind of set to approve. So I disagree with denying the certificate.
Thank you, Kelly. Who else?
Mr. Chair, I would support what Kelly said. I feel like that the addition is tucked behind the house and is done in pieces, which is within keeping with the guidelines, and given the visibility of the addition and the size of the lot, I would see a reason to vary by 9%. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
All right.
So the new roof on the back side of the original house is a 1 in 12 pitch. What is the roofing materials there?
Matt, would you comment on that? Matt, you're still with us. Matt Smith.
I am not
I
sure.
apologize. I had my phone on mute.
Okay.
I believe the roof that you're referring to, I believe is proposed screen porch out back. And that roofing material would be a membrane roof, like a rubber membrane. As you can see, it'd be bound on 3 sides, so it would not be visible from the street or either side of the home.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I will just say that I'm more inclined to approve this rather than deny it because of the large lot. If it's 1.23 acres, then we've got an 8% lot area coverage. I think we've got a situation here that we could approve what has been presented. So I will vote against denying.
And I would just say, if I could, that the rationale, I think, for denying in this case really goes to preserving the historic integrity of the home itself, the original home, which is from the 1940s. And I believe that really is the basis for the guidelines indicating that it should be at 50%. And then also my reason would be for preserving this guideline and not setting a precedent. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is
Yes.
Susan. I have a comment.
Okay.
I think I just want to concur with Lisa's comments. And I think the other thing, this is not a very big house. And I think that when you have a house that is small and quaint and adorable is probably not the right word, but it really is a great example of its time period. I think that, there's this fine line there, and that's why I'm supporting, denying the motion. Or I'm in favor of denying.
Got it.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we're ready to vote then. So please respond then when I call your name. And Kelly Baker,
No.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Jeff Carson,
No.
Mike Hathaway, or excuse me, Mike's recused himself on that. Brian Laster,
No.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce,
No.
Ken Scow,
No.
and Jim Roberts, no. So the noes have it. Do we have another motion then?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed addition based on staff analysis and comments.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Is there a second to that?
I will make a second, but I want some clarification. Does that mean that the comment staff made, that if it were approved, would be binding? Because I think they should be. Staff made recommendations if we did approve it.
If issued, yes,
Yes, so those remain binding.
that's correct.
Okay. And I move to approve.
Okay.
Second, whichever.
Comments on this?
Oh, because we need to clarify why we are going against staff recommendation. I'll restate that it's due to the limited public view shed, the subservient nature of the addition, and the low lot coverage that I am making this motion going against staff recommendation.
All right, did you get that, Amanda? Okay, any comments?
I have an amendment, Mr. Chair. This is Susan.
All right, Susan.
One of my concerns is the brick color matching or coming together with the stone. And so I would like to make an amendment that the brick color would come back to staff for approval.
Is there a second to that?
I would second.
All right, is there any comments on the brick color on that amendment? All right, let's vote on the amendment then. Please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Jeff Carson,
Aye.
Mike, Brian Laster,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce,
Aye.
Ken Scow,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts, aye. All right, we're back to the main motion then as amended to approve the addition. Any other comments? Okay, then please respond then when I call your name. Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser.
No.
Did I hear no?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff Carson,
Aye.
Brian Laster,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
No.
Mary Pierce,
Aye.
Ken Scow,
Aye.
and Jim Roberts, aye. Okay. We're done. On to the next one. Item 3 tonight is consideration of additions, principal and accessory and alterations, front yard retaining wall, steps construction at 803 Fair Street. Samuel Whitson is the applicant. Kelly Gibson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One moment while I share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for a series of work at 803 Fair Street as follows. A rear addition to the principal structure, in addition to the garage accessory structure, and construction of primary yard steps and retaining wall. So first we'll consider the additions
Yes.
there, and then we will do the retaining wall.
Am I supposed to?
This is the
Okay.
addition to the principal building. The applicant proposes the construction of a single-story front gable addition on the rear elevation of the dwelling. The addition features wood siding, a concrete foundation, a single wood window, and trim detailing that match the existing house. The guidelines state that appropriate locations for additions are on rear or obscured elevations and recommend avoiding approaches that unify the existing structure and new construction into a single architectural whole. Furthermore, the guidelines recommend the use of differentiating methods such as roof breaks, insets, offsets, and material changes to separate existing construction from new construction. The guidelines also recommend that addition square footage be limited to no more than half of the square footage of the historic building, and maximum building coverage should not exceed 35%. The addition is differentiated through the use of a lower roof line and a material change. The location, materials, design, and size of the addition, which is 8% of the building footprint, are consistent with the guidelines. The existing building coverage is 25%, and the proposed addition would increase the coverage to 26%. This increase is consistent with the guidelines, which recommend that building coverage not exceed 35%. The accessory addition, here we are. The circa 1930 brick garage is located southeast of the dwelling and is a contributing structure to the historic district. The proposed single-story side addition includes a concrete foundation, wood siding, and trim details that match the existing house. The addition will also include double-hung wood windows, seen here. The guidelines recommend that historic outbuildings be preserved and maintained and state that appropriate locations for additions are rear or obscured elevations. The guidelines do not differentiate between the recommended percentage and scale of enclosed additions proposed on principal structures versus accessory structures, and recommend that the square footage of additions be limited to no more than half of the square footage of the existing building, of the historic building. The guidelines also recommend avoiding design approaches that unify the existing structure and new construction into a single architectural whole, and recommend the use of differentiating methods such as roof breaks, insets, offsets, and material changes to separate existing construction from new construction. The proposed addition is located on a side elevation that is obscured from public view by the principal dwelling and measures 41% of the existing historic building. The addition is differentiated through a roof break, building inset, and material change. The addition's design, placement, and materials allow it to read as a distinctive form from the existing structure. The building coverage is 25%, and the proposed accessory addition would increase the building coverage to 27%. The total proposed building coverage, including the addition to the principal structure, so everything together, is 29%. The proposed accessory addition materials, size, and design are consistent with the guidelines. One moment. Here we are. For the principal addition, it is recommended that the commission approve with conditions the proposed addition as follows. The windows must have historic profile and dimensions and consist of either wood or a composite material with the appearance of wood. The window specifications must be approved by the preservation planner or the commission prior to issuance of a building permit. And the application must meet all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department, including their standards for landscape surface area prior to issuance of a building permit. And any additional changes to the approved plans must be returned to the commission for review and approval. For the accessory addition, it is recommended that the commission approve with conditions the proposed addition as follows. The windows must have historic profile and dimension and consist of either wood or a composite material with the appearance of wood. The window specifications must be approved by the preservation planner or the commission prior to issuance of a building permit. And the application must meet all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department prior to issuance of a building permit. And any additional changes to the approved plans must be returned to the commission for review and approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, with the applicant, I'd like to comment on this. Mr. Whitson, I see, is at the podium.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the addition to the main structure, the house, it will be a additional bathroom for downstairs. As we get older, it would have a 0 entry shower. It will be in keeping with the previous changes we made to the house inside to keep it in its 1930s character. We're getting older. Our main bedroom and bath is upstairs. One of these days, it's going to be tough climbing the steps, and that's why we're going with this small addition to the main structure. The addition to the garage is actually going to be a working shed. It's not going to be it's not going to be finished inside. It will be in keeping with the other additions, the porch and to the bath. So it would look like it was there from the 1930s when the house was built and the garage. And again, it will just be, like they said, a concrete floor, but also the windows will make it look like it was part of the original construction back in the 1930s.
All right. Thank you. Are there any citizens who wish to comment on this portion of the application? Hearing none, then commissioners, I'd like to combine the two additions into one motion, if we can do that. So if there would be a motion, I'd appreciate someone making it.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Brian, I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed addition and.
Ryan, we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed addition accessory.
Is that for both? You were fading out.
Yes, it's for both. I'm
Okay.
getting a message. My internet connection is unstable.
Okay. Okay, is there a second to that?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that. It's Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Any comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment that this particular project, as well as the one on West Main, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a very good example of a complementary addition to a historic structure. So I'm saying that for both.
We lost you.
You can move forward, Mr. Chair.
Brian, I think we lost you. But I think we got the gist of it. Is there other comments?
Well, Mr. Chair, I would just try to say what I think Brian was saying, and that is that this is a very sensitive addition, and we're seeing 2 of our Tudor cottages, which we don't have a ton of, historic cottages tonight, and it's good to see such stewardship.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add one more comment that's complimentary. I am excited that we're able to hopefully approve this project that allows a family to age in place. So aging in place is something that's very important to me and near and dear to my heart. And so I appreciate Representative Whitson taking the time and effort to do this well and the forethought to get that in place when he doesn't need it and won't need it for many years to come.
That's right. Trust me, that's very near and dear to my heart too, aging in place. All right, any other comments?
I don't think you asked for citizens' comments, Mr. Chair.
Oh, excuse me. Are they? I think I did. I'm
Okay.
told that I did.
Okay, well, good. Well, I apologize. I do have one comment. I wonder if it's possible for the addition on the main house it's just a blank wall. And if you wanted to have something there, there's no windows. So that concerns me a little bit, but I think overall, I think it is very sensitive to the structure. Thank you.
Thought there was a window.
Ms. Gibson, would you mind pulling up that elevation, please?
Oh, I see what you.
I concur with Ms. Besser's comments.
I had seen that too and wondered about it. You're not going to see, it's just going to be the homeowner and visitors that are going to see it. But if it were possible to break up that wall, I concur.
Okay. That's going to be that's a bathroom, right? Mr. Whitson, you want to comment on that?
Yes, and we had the same concern. Actually, they will be kind of divided along between where the roof pitches and that main wall, but also we have a trellis they were used before in that location, and we can use that. And also, there will be something appropriate and complimentary that we will place on that wall. There will be a sidewalk in front of that also, and an opportunity to grow flowers and some kind of, I'm not an expert on this, but we have a miniature magnolia also that we will put there on that trellis against that wall.
Mr. Chair, this is Amanda McCreary. Can I speak for just a moment?
Absolutely, yes. Please do. You need to bail him out here, Amanda.
No, not at all. So, I appreciate y'all's comments for sure. And we're definitely trying to keep the addition and a very tight footprint. And by doing so, to have a tight master bathroom that we can do some universal design and age in place. It did not lend itself for any windows on the back. So we did drop a window on the side where we're able to just to get some natural light in there, but it was also a direct reflection of trying to keep that in a small footprint to be able to work. And if you look, I think on one of the photos, you can see, maybe if you even scroll up a little bit, Kelly, you can see, no, it's on that same page. It's just on the top corner. There is that, you can see that existing trellis that Representative Whitson is discussing. So there will be some greenery and some green screening to help that facade not feel so blank.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other comments?
If I may, from a staff perspective, when I reviewed this initially upon receiving it from Ms. McCreary on behalf of the Whitsons, I noted that, but because it does face the rear elevation, I feel strongly that it could support a window, but if it wouldn't be necessary from a fenestration standpoint.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I think you're ready to vote to approve as presented. So let's please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker?
Aye.
Susan Besser?
Aye.
Jeff Carson?
Aye.
Mike Hathaway?
Aye.
Brian Laster?
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt?
Aye.
Mary Pierce?
Aye.
Ken Scalf?
Aye.
And Jim Roberts, aye. All right, the next piece of this are the steps in the front. Kelly Gibson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One moment. The proposed steps and wall consists of the replacement of the existing concrete stairs and the construction of a concrete retaining wall located on the primary yard of the dwelling along the sidewalk. Staff has consulted with Building and Neighborhood Services Department and determined that new handrails will be required for the stairs per code's requirements. The guidelines recommend that new retaining walls be constructed of stone or brick rather than concrete blocks or poured concrete. The guidelines also recommend that retaining walls support the historic character of the district and recommend wall materials that are similar in scale, texture, color, and form as those historically used in the district, and that are compatible with the main structure. The applicant has submitted photo samples of existing concrete retaining walls located within downtown Franklin, some of which are located outside of HPO. The concrete wall would be in keeping with the Tudor revival style of the home, as new brick may be difficult to match to the historic brick on the building, and stone would introduce a new material to the property. It is recommended that the commission approve with conditions the proposed retaining wall and steps as follows. Handrails will be required to meet code's requirements. The handrails should be composed of metal for consistency with the guidelines, and the applicant shall submit the final design of the handrail to the preservation planner for review and approval. And the application must meet all the requirements of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department, and any additional changes to the approved plans must be returned to the commission for review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would the applicant like to comment on the steps? Sam?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said. Well, the problem, if you go with cheek walls, if you go back to the photos, I don't think any of the cheek wall that were built in the 1930s had handrails. And the as you can see, the steps are wide enough. And if you could go back to the photos of around town, you'll see that traditionally cheek walls were built with the older homes, and there's not a provision or really a way to put handrails on those. And we were trying to keep this in character with the homes built back in that period in the 1930s.
Okay, are there any citizens that wish to comment on this application, on this part of the application? All right, hearing none, then commissioners need a motion.
Mr. Chair, this is Ken. I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for proposed retaining wall and steps.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, it's Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, questions, comments?
May I note something quickly, please?
Yes, please, Amanda.
I did want to mention that I completely understand Mr. Woodson's point, but unfortunately the Historic Zoning Commission wouldn't be able to supersede the hand railing condition. That would be something I would recommend that Representative Woodson work with the Building and Neighborhood Services Department to attempt to resolve. We wouldn't be able to make a condition of approval that would require that not be placed in there.
All right, thank you. So for purposes of our... Sorry, I was muted. So for purposes of our motion tonight, then it would go as recommended by staff with the handrails. And then if a waiver can be obtained from Building and Neighborhood Services, then that's fine. But that's not part of what we're dealing with tonight.
Well, Mr. Chair, has there been a consideration given to just repairing the steps rather than replacing them?
I cannot answer that. Mr. Whitson, can you answer that?
Yes, yes, those steps, if you go back to the photos of the steps, they are deteriorating. And also we're going to have to replace the sidewalk portion right in front. You see the cracks there, and also the sidewalk going up to the house, and is going to have to be replaced by massive cracks. And those steps look like they were added at some point, and they were done poorly. And the reason the retaining wall, you see, that's one of the few houses that has a slope, and somehow or another you have to. That's caused why those steps have deteriorated, because you can get inside there, and the retaining wall will be a buffer between the steps and that the ground there.
I think to Ms. Pierce's point, repair of them would not elicit a requirement to add a railing because they'd be existing. But if new steps are constructed, then the new code would be required to add a railing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the other comment I have, looking at the concrete retaining walls, I believe that the concrete retaining wall as proposed with this incredibly charming house is gonna not do it a favor. And I know how capable the homeowners are and would love a consideration of a stone retaining wall. Or I guess they are minimizing this retaining wall and landscaping that fell over it.
So I didn't get that completely, Mary. So a stone retaining wall instead of the concrete?
Yes, sir. Our guidelines recommend that they be stone or brick. If we're going against the guidelines, I think staff has given some reason for that in that you couldn't match the brick. I don't disagree with that, although maybe you could, I don't know. And then the stone retaining wall, I was looking online at Tudor houses, and in the historic districts, most of those are done out of stone or brick. And it just concerns me to go down the road of a concrete retaining wall. Concrete's not amazingly sturdy in some situations where there is a lot of pressure against it. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Sam.
Well, the one reason we looked at concrete rather than stone, there's no stone on this house at all. The foundation is concrete, and I kind of highlighted in the drawing, a lot of this, you see it's either concrete or cut concrete accent to the house. So, and also the structure down the street also has a small 2-foot retaining wall made out of concrete and several. So it's kind of in keeping with the period of the house, and goes in the concrete actually enhances it, whereas most of the stone I've seen looks new and would detract from the appearance of the house.
Okay. Are there any other comments? We have a motion on the board to approve as presented. Any other comments?
I have a comment, please.
All right.
That's okay. We did fail to note that a capstone might need to be added to this wall, either a concrete one or perhaps even a stone one, in respect to Ms. Pierce's point, that would be more indicative of what you'd see on historic walls. But it's not a condition of approval. This one that was that we forgot to note there.
I would concur with that. Mr. Chair, can we see a picture of the front of the house again?
Kelly Gibson, can you pull up the front of the house with the front that shows the stairs as currently shown?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah, there is a lot of, it looks like there's some limestone detailing on the house too. That's what I was wanting to see. But I do like that the retaining wall is not any taller than it is.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Susan.
Okay, Susan.
Should we make an amendment that the capstone would be limestone or a stone that would match the material on the house?
Where is the capstone?
It would go across the top. It would go across the top of the retaining wall.
All the way across the whole length?
Yes, sir.
That is actually concrete on top of the very top of the house.
Is it right
Yes.
here around the front door?
I have,
They're talking about, just for the record,
Yeah.
they're talking about the keystones around the arched entry. Kelly's pointing that out.
Got it. Okay, I see. But we're talking about a capstone on top of the retaining wall that goes the full length of the retaining wall?
Yes, Ms. Gibson, could you scroll to some of those examples that the applicant provided?
Yes. You see, none of those have
that.
Right.
They don't. And they look very modern.
Oh.
They don't have them, and I think they generally look very modern. I think landscaping spilling over softens and helps.
Some of those are quite old, those retaining walls that you see there. And one of them is actually a new one. Let me ask you, is there a possible to separate the wall from the steps so the steps need to be replaced? We can always work on the wall later.
Well, I think we can put all this together. I think we can. Is there any other commissioner have any other comments? Or is there an amendment on this capstone? All right. Hearing none, then let's vote on the steps as presented, the steps and the wall as presented. So please respond then when I call your name. Kelly Baker?
Aye.
Susan Besser?
Aye.
Jeff Carson?
Aye.
Mike Hathaway?
Aye.
Brian Laster?
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt?
Aye.
Mary Pierce?
Aye.
Ken Scalf?
Aye.
Jim Roberts? Aye. You're good.
In clarification, that was the amendment vote?
No, that's it, as presented. No, there was no amendment.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you.
We're done. Thank you, Mr. Ms. Whitson.
Thank you, board, and I appreciate y'all's public service of doing this. I know how it takes up a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for item 4. Consideration of principal and additions and alterations, accessory upper and lower level at 208 Lewisburg Avenue, Brian Miller applicant. Staff, Amanda Rose.
Good evening, everyone. The applicant is requesting consideration of an addition to the principal structure and additions to the accessory structure as well as some alterations at 208 Lewisburg Avenue. I'm going to share screen. Okay, can everyone see the screen? Okay, I'll walk through really quickly. The series of work includes the following, which would be a one-story rear addition to the principal structure. This is the view right now, and it would be an addition reworking this area and then coming off here. I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of an echo. I think my colleague's fixing that for me. Okay. The construction of an upper level addition to this accessory structure, which is behind the house. You can see the rear of the house here, and then the accessories over in this area. The addition would be a slight addition forward of this front wall to allow for more additional living space, as well as an upper story addition across the entirety of the existing structure. The elevation of the grade at this area, as the applicant has indicated, is a depressed condition, and they are worried about some water issues here. So elevating this existing wing of the accessory structure upward in order to get it out of that depressed condition. The reconfiguration of the fenestration pattern on this existing building, as I'll show on the elevation set momentarily, and the replacement of the synthetic siding on both the principal structure addition area, which you can see here, as well as the overall accessory structure It is all in synthetic siding, and they would like to replace that with a smooth cementitious siding. Here's the overall site plan with the proposed additions in place. And here is the existing left elevation. No changes will be visible from the left elevation. And here is the proposed rear elevation, and I will leave it here momentarily. The guidelines recommend that additions are designed to be clearly compatible yet differentiated with the proportions, form, materials, and details of the building, and be limited to no more than 50% of the footprint of the original building. The historic building must include all portions of the building that are at least 50 years in age. And the historic building must be clearly identifiable, and its physical integrity not be compromised by a new addition, as through approaches that unify the existing structure and new construction into a single architectural whole. The guidelines support the placement of additions on rear elevations or obscured elevations with limited visibility, noting, however, that some elevations may not be appropriate for additions as they will have visual prominence from many vantage points. The applicant's proposing to reconfigure this area, as I noted, which is an existing non-contributing shed addition at the rear, in order to provide some additional space. The hipped addition that is proposed, I'll go ahead and show from the right angle so you can see that shape a little better. And it's proposed to extend outward, to extrude outward and align with the, roughly with the existing condition here, the existing covered entry on the rear. The addition is recessed entirely behind the structure's facade, offset by 2 feet from the historic form. The applicant removed a small bay element that used to be located as proposed to be located on this right elevation upon feedback from the design review committee, and instead introduced a small roof break, another hip here, to indicate an articulation and break up the mass of the extension. The alteration to the non-historic addition is appropriate, as is altered in keeping with the recommendations of the guidelines for enclosed additions. As such, the historic building is clearly identifiable and its integrity is not compromised by this addition. The addition is compatible with proportions, forms, materials, and details of the historic structure. While a small section of the addition may have some limited visibility from the street view, the majority of the addition will be obscured. The existing non-historic addition is clad in aluminum siding, and as I mentioned, the applicant would like to replace it with cementitious siding with a smooth face. If wood is present underneath synthetic siding, it is generally the recommendations of the guidelines to maintain that and maintain it, preserve it, rather than replace it. But with this being a non-historic addition, the use of cementitious siding is appropriate, though any replacement of synthetic siding on the historic portion would need to be in keeping with the guidelines. The footprint of the proposed addition measures 433 square feet, and combined with existing non-historic additions equates to approximately 46% of the original structure. Thus, the addition is mostly consistent with the guidelines, which recommend that additions be limited to no more than half of the footprint of the original building. The materials proposed would have an asphalt composition roof, cementitious siding. The proposed foundation material is not indicated, though continued use of the existing material is appropriate. As the addition is already there, I would ask that the applicant clarify that, and the exact window specifications have not been submitted for consideration at this time. I'm moving on to
let's do these in 2 motions and just do them. We'll talk about them separately.
Sure.
So, with the applicant wish to comment on let's talk about the principal addition first. Would the applicant comment on that?
Sure, yeah. I'm Brian Miller. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing the proposal. And I want to thank Amanda for her presentation. Very well said. We did take comments from the DRC to heart. Most of those will be to the accessory structure, we'll get to next. But we did reconfigure the space a little bit, tried to reorient the windows that were very small, square windows, to be more in proportion with the historic nature of the existing home, with very simple massing And part of that was flipping some of the interior spaces. Whereas before the master only had a single window, which was a historic window, which we did not want to impact, that has now become the zone of the bathroom closet so that the master could be at the rear, capitalizing on the views of the rear and allow us to use larger proportional windows that worked for the bedroom versus the bathroom. And all in all, it was an improvement to the design. And I think it accommodated some of the concerns of a few of the commissioners.
Would you like me to make the recommendation for a motion?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
So I know that it is summarizing what I've already said, but it is recommended that the commission approve with conditions the principal accessory, I'm sorry, the principal structure addition. The windows for the addition must have historic profile and dimension and consist of either wood or composite material emulative of wood, and those specifications would need to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of any permits. The foundation material specifications must also be submitted to staff for review and approval in light of the guidelines prior to issuance of a permit, and must meet all the requirements of the V&S department. Any changes must be returned to the preservation planner or the Historic Zoning Commission prior to work commencing for review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any citizens who wish to comment on this portion of the application? Hearing none, then we need a motion for from the commissioners for this portion of the application.
Mr. Chair.
Mary, you're muted.
I know, Mr. Chair, I move that the Historic Zoning Commission approve with conditions the proposed principal structure addition.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Susan.
All right, Susan. All right, discussion. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
All right, Kelly.
It appears from the drawings that the roof overhang on the right side elevation is going to be just slightly visible from the front elevation. Is that accurate? It's not showing on the front elevation, but it looks like it from the drawings from sort of the overhead drawing. I'm looking at A0 is the
The overhang at the addition should not project beyond the face. The 2-foot setback will prevent that. So what you can kind of see here is where that bathtub is, that oval where her hand is. Yeah. That's the setback. So the overhang will hit the sidewall of the existing structure without projecting forward. And that's one of the benefits of setting it back. Not only is there a massing break, but it allows for a wall for the termination of that overhang.
That answer, Kelly?
I'm also looking at A6, so just want to look at that a second view.
Sure. Oh, okay, what you're seeing here is a forward mass. It steps back in the intermediate position where that bathroom is, where it would engage the historic home. Amanda, you might be able to go to the last sheet, which is a roof plan. Or whoever has control, I'm sorry.
Amanda's got it.
Keep going all the way to the very last page, I believe it is. Kind of threw them in at the end. Here you'll see the bottom right corner. That articulation of the hip that pulls forward steps back before it hits the main structure, so the roof does not stick forward of that where it engages it. If that helps understand the condition.
Very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, no, we certainly don't want the roof standing proud of that from the front view.
All right, any other questions? We're ready to vote then on the principal structure. We've got a motion to approve as presented. So just please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. All right. Now we're on to the accessory building. Amanda, it's back to you.
Yes, thank you. So as far as the accessory, I'm going to share screen again so I can help explain as we go along. Just a moment. Okay. So The subject accessory structure is of circa 1970 construction and is not currently contributing to the Lewisburg Avenue Historic District in age, although it is pretty diminutive as far as the design goes currently. In the case of alterations to non-contributing buildings, the alterations are reviewed in light of the guidelines, specifically in relation to how the proposed alterations would impact the character of the district and in the character of the surrounding structures. The size and complexity of the overall proposal relates to infill building guidelines for accessory buildings, which recommends that structures be visually subordinate in placement, size, massing, and intricacy to the principal structure that it serves, as well as being shorter in height and designed simply using forms reflective of and consistent with the context of the respective principal structure. So here the applicant is proposing to add an upper level over the entirety of the existing structure, which you can see on the upper part of the page, existing conditions. So the proposal is being discussed in two different portions. The structure is configured in an L shape, which I know is a little difficult to see here, but this is a wing and this is a gable front that projects outward. I can go to the roof plan just to kind of show you that quickly. Here's the wing, here's the garage portion that extends outward. So because of that, I'm speaking to it in a couple of different ways. The proposed addition would consist of the side facing portion with the 3 front facing gable dormers that you see here on the quote unquote wing portion. And then the other portion is a front facing gable that you see here over the garage. So in discussing the wing portion with the side facing gable, this addition proposes some linear square footage, both upward and lower on the ground level. The lower enclosed area was previously discussed at a DRC meeting as being a proposed porch. So the upper story would cantilever over, creating a porch underneath. But it has since been enclosed due to concerns about the porch itself. So the portion of the building is proposed at a height overall from grade to here of 21 feet, 8.5 inches as viewed from the street. The applicant has indicated that he would like to raise this floor on the wing side only to address a grading issue, and 8 inches of elevation has been included in the calculation in order to address that. The structure will read full height from the rear elevation. So 21 and 8.5 here. And if you go to the rear elevation, you will read it full height. And I will show you why. You can see the raising of the conditions here. So it will read shorter from the front than it does from the rear. While the dormers are only set back 1 foot from the front wall, you can see the applicant's called out 1 foot from the front wall and then 1 foot from the eave that extends outward, which is contrary to the recommendations of the guidelines, which say that dormers be set back 2 feet as a minimum from the exterior wall. They do help reinforce the scale of this portion of the addition as a 1.5 story form. We'll go back to the front again. And thus emphasizes the subservient relationship between the accessory structure and the principal structure it serves, which is a 2-story structure. The removal of the previously discussed porch is appropriate as this modification lessens the building's overall appearance as a secondary principal structure on the lot. As for the front-facing gable over the garage, this portion measures 23 feet, 8.5 inches to ridge. So there's about a 2 foot difference here where this is being elevated. As such, the overall building is approximately 8.5 feet shorter than the principal structure, and the overall decrease in the height from what was previously submitted is about 4 feet. The proposed upper story addition scale and height are lessened by the removal of the gable form from the rear elevation, which I will show here, as the applicant had originally had a gable form here. But with that removed, it does lessen the perceived height of the elevation and will lessen the structure's presence for advantages on the street behind Adams Street. Both portions of the proposed addition are inset from the facade by 2 feet in order to comply with zoning setback requirements. So here you see a slight inset from the existing wall upward because the property is 3 feet off the property line, or the building is 3 feet off the property line, and setback requirements require that any new construction be 5 feet off the property line. The applicant is proposing to utilize siding to lessen the foundation appearance from the rear. So the siding will go all the way down to the necessary requirement here, which is probably 18 inches. The applicant is also proposing to remove this aluminum siding from the entirety of the structure. Because this is a non-contributing structure, its removal and its replacement with cementitious siding, as I discussed for the principal structure, is appropriate. The fenestration pattern is proposed to be altered overall, the entirety of the structure. As a non-contributing structure, these alterations are appropriate. The general rhythm and spacing of the proposed fenestration are mostly in keeping with the intent of the guidelines. Though the use of multiple doors on the front face does continue to cause some potential consideration of this as secondary principal structure, however. The use of the cement board siding, asphalt shingle roofing are all consistent with the guidelines. The exact window, door, and roofing specifications have not been submitted for consideration, however. When I say roofing, I think I misspoke because it is indicated to be asphalt shingle. The wooden pergola that is proposed on the front-facing gable portion above the garage door is in keeping with previous approvals by the commission, and its placement helps break up the mass of the front-facing gabled form. The use of standing seam metal for the eyebrow roof material would be appropriate and consistent with the district and surrounding area. The lot coverage proposed here cumulatively is approximately 22%, which is in keeping with the guidelines, which recommend no more than 35%. I did want to note some other DRC comments that were made. The DRC discussed this proposal at its October meeting, and the feedback related to the proposed potential structure alterations were generally favorable. The feedback regarding the proposed accessory structure comments centered around the size, scale, and intricacy of the structure, as many DRC members noted that the design read as an additional principal structure on the property. Specific guidance to place fenestration more sensitively for neighbors' privacy and to minimize the then featured double gables was implemented. The applicant has since utilized dormers, as you can see here. And concerns about the overall height and scale were addressed, as the proposal, though elevated at the wing to address grading and drainage issues, is shorter than the house by 4 feet. So with that, I would recommend that the Historic Zoning Commission approve with conditions the proposed accessory structure addition and alterations. The conditions being that the windows be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of the permit, and that all roofing specifications be submitted to staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant wish to comment on this?
I think Amanda did a wonderful job explaining the project. I'll just expand on a couple points. The issue with regard to raising the left side was something that came up in exploration after the last meeting. We did have a condition where their patio area slopes about 15 inches right into the front door. So to make this, with this investment to make it work right, we're just proposing to elevate the grade on that forward corner, which faces their courtyard. And as Amanda spoke, the rear would remain unchanged with regard to the grade, and the siding would continue down so that it would not look like it was an elevated floor level there. The dormers, again, it's a smaller spaced roof, so it's very difficult for us to set it back 2 feet. As you can see here, the top of the windows are right at the ceiling line as is. And we feel proportionally that exception works in this case. The other elements, like she said, we really came back and tried to depress the height of the overall thing, removed the porch. We do have 3 doors, but that's because this wing has 3 separate functions. It isn't a house with one front door with spaces in it. One door goes to the second accessory space upstairs, one to a pool bath, and one to the first floor accessory living space to the pool area. Aside from that, we're in opinion that this is very close to a lot of the other accessory structures in the neighborhood and would be fitting and add to the quality of life for the homeowners.
Thank you. Are there any citizens that wish to comment on this portion of the application? Hearing none, need a motion then from the commission.
Chair, this is Ken Scalf.
Thank you, Ken.
I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed accessory structure alterations and.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second to that?
I'll second, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, I've got
Yes,
a question. Does that motion mean that we're going to ask him to move those dormers back a foot?
Oh, that's a great question.
I did not make that a condition of
that is not a condition. That is not a condition.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, what can we be reminded of what is the dwelling behind this accessory structure and the height of it?
Behind it's a house that fronts Adams Street.
Right.
And it's a single one-story building.
Do we have
If you can zoom in, we created a three-dimensional model of the addition and scaled it and placed it in.
Can we see that?
Yeah, it's on the screen.
You're looking at it right there.
Okay,
So that's the home on Adams, and beyond would be our proposed addition.
That answers my concern. Thank you.
Yeah, it answered mine too.
Right. And there's an existing chain link fence that is as it is.
All right, other questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Susan.
Yes, Susan.
I don't have the this elevation from when we talked about this before, so I don't know exactly what was changed. But what I did hear was that the roof line was lowered, and I guess I'm still feeling that it reads like a principal dwelling. But I do acknowledge that it has been changed quite a bit.
Yes, it's been lowered 3 feet 4 inches. I've got the original in front of me too.
Okay, thank you.
The original drawing.
What is the square footage of this structure compared to the historic home?
Do we have that somewhere, Amanda?
I did not include that in it, but I know that Mr. Miller can speak.
Mr. Miller has probably got it.
Correct. The existing the square footage at the primary residence is 3,463 square feet. And the garage, as it was before, was 971 square feet. And the addition we're proposing both first and second floor is 1,446. So in aggregate, it's less than half the size of the main residence.
So let me make sure I understand. That 1,446 then includes the existing garage, right?
Absolutely. That's in total.
Okay.
So we're adding about almost 500 square feet to the structure, to both the second floor and the first floor.
That answer, Mary?
It does. It's somewhat concerning because it is probably as large as the houses on Adams Street, but in the complete context of everything, I think this is going to work okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think there was a front elevation view where it's quite obscured from the street. And the neighbor to the left has an accessory structure from the forward vision that's actually very similar in scale. So we've tried to keep that in mind.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair, I think all the concern about this is not from Lewisburg. I think.
No, it's from Adams.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I walked down there to look at it myself, so I've seen it. I think the adjustments he's made and the height over the garage, that lowering that 3 foot 4 inches has made a big difference. And I appreciate the perspective you've shown from Adams Street now that I'm looking at. So I think it's all right.
And speaking to Mr. Miller, I did note too that, removing the gable form that was proposed here at the last DRC is dropping your eye down as well. So it won't read as tall, nor is it actually as tall as what was discussed at DRC.
There's actually a gable form in the existing structure that reads taller than it does with the second floor added because of that.
Other questions? Hearing none, then are we ready to vote? I guess we are. So please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scow.
Aye.
Jim Roberts. Aye. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you to the
Thank you. Thank you all.
homeowners. I see them on Zoom
Thank you,
there
Mr.
for
and
us.
Mrs. Monin. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for item 5 now. Consideration of new construction at 149 Splendor Ridge, Lot 9, Mike Ford Builders applicant. Amanda Rose.
Yes, I will open that up in just a moment and close out the previous item.
Got all our papers separated.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to spend a moment on the overview.
That's good. Good idea.
Let me try to share that. Okay. Oh, I think I'm sharing the wrong thing, but I will go ahead and note this too. I did ask the applicant if he could provide information on view sheds from Franklin Road, which is one that the DRC had recommended be approved or considered as part of the review. And this is what the applicant provided. I did email that to all of the commissioners last week. Okay, now I'm going to do a new share. They're both called overview, so I opened the wrong one. Apologies. Okay, can everyone see my screen? You see an aerial? Okay, so this is Splendor Ridge subdivision. It's a newly developed subdivision. It's located in the red hashed area here. Its location in relation to Franklin Road, which is here, is behind the historic Riverview Mansion, which is located around here at 151. It's accessed from an existing roadway into Harpeth Meadows subdivision, which is a circa 60-70 subdivision off Franklin Road. So you would go down Franklin Road onto Lancaster Drive and then access it with a turn onto Parsons Place, which is located here. To go ahead and go a little further, here is the layout for Splendor Ridge subdivision. You can see that there are 18 lots. The ones that are being discussed tonight are lots 9, 10, and 11, which are located at the intersection of Parsons Place and Splendor Ridge Drive. The applicant has done an excellent job of providing streetscape for discussion that would help orient staff, the community at large, and the commissioners on where the buildings and how the buildings will be situated. So you can see this approach is Parsons Place as it ties into Splendor Ridge. You see existing homes here on either side. Lot 9 is located here, Lot 10 here, and Lot 11 here. This is the highest part of the development. The grade of the street kind of rises up, hits here, and then it falls off on either side and behind toward the river. The applicant has provided a side view with the streetscape as well. The first discussion we'll have is on Lot 9, which you can see located here. This is some additional information. This is the view from the corner of, I believe this is actually 2nd Avenue on North Martin Street facing north. The view is mostly obscured right now with trees. The other side being Harpeth River. The houses will actually sit on the other side of a low plain on Harpeth River. So this is the view from the downtown side, the south side looking north. And here's some other photographs of the context area. This is a barn that is situated at Splendor Ridge subdivision, the existing barn on the property, as well as the Riverview Mansion itself. Here are some other properties located on Franklin Road. The BGA property is located right across the street from Riverview. And these are some other homes located very close by in the area. Okay, I'm going to end this share. And I'm going to share specific to Lot 9. Okay. So the applicant's requesting a COA for the construction of a 2-story principal structure with garage at 149 Splendor Ridge Drive, which is Lot 9. The applicant did discuss this with the DRC at its meeting in November. I already explained the location of the area, but I did want to note that the Historic Zoning Commission considered this subdivision for issuance of what we are calling a preliminary certificate of appropriateness at its April 18th meeting. And with that development, or prior to the development's approval, and with that, the COA provides direction to the final owners on pivotal design elements such as height for the buildings, the setback of the buildings from the street, the scale of the buildings, and the mass of the buildings. The COA that has already been issued states that the overall building heights would be limited to 39 feet from grade and up to 2.5 stories in scale, with an understanding that all individual buildings would be evaluated for appropriateness based on grading and context at the time prior to their construction. This condition is based on the applicant's statement that no retaining wall will be used that is more than 2 feet in height from the street grade, and that a variety of building forms and heights will be required by the Historic Zoning Commission. The COA also mentions that all building materials and facade design elements are not approved as part of that COA and are subject to review and approval individually. So that's what we're doing tonight for the first 3. So to go ahead and say that will apply to all 3 that we speak to tonight.
Good. Save your voice.
And save you all from hearing it 2 more times. Okay, so the guidelines recommend that new construction be designed to be compatible in massing heights, proportions, scale, size, and architectural features of adjacent buildings, and that new construction complement rather than detract from the character of the historic building. So the Franklin Road Historic District includes several properties. I did show a number of photographs of those just a moment ago, but it does include things like Jasmine Hall, Wyatt Hall, the Truett House, the McElmahan House, Battleground Academy located across the street from this property, Riverview itself, Roper's Knob, the factory, Hartledsdale Farm, many of which are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So the district represents an array of architectural styles. All those buildings are very different from one another. And those styles include things like Victorian, Greek Revival, folk Victorian, neoclassical, bungalow. It runs the gamut. Some of the key architectural features of this corridor is that includes residential and agricultural buildings from the 19th and 20th centuries, with the exception of a couple of the higher style homes. Many tend to be more vernacular in approach, and it has a mix of rural and roadside development. The applicant's proposing the construction of a federal style residence, as you see on the screen here. It has a 3-bay porch and an attached garage at the rear of the driveway, as you can see. It is 2-level, and then at the rear is a 2-level partially enclosed porch that would overlook the area by the river. Now, the setback's pretty defined by the development plan. It recommends that, the guidelines recommend that you reinforce and maintain existing setbacks because this is already set. These setbacks have been defined as 15 feet for the front yard, 5 for the side yards, and 15 for the rear. The applicant has provided that conceptual streetscape to provide information about the grade changes and context, as well as information about those topographical changes from the street grade to the street level to FFV. So all that would equal from the street level to The finished floor elevation is a 6-foot change. So the applicant has implemented staff's recommendation to use this approximate 2-foot retaining wall to help lessen that steepness and the appearance of the foundation from the street. So what you're going to see on each of these buildings tonight is approximate 3-foot foundation height from the bottom of the steps on the property to the finished floor elevation, and then another 2 feet for the retaining wall as it drops down, for a total of 6. The proposed scale of 2 stories, this is an appropriate scale for the Franklin Road Historic District. It also is consistent with that preliminary COA. And as I mentioned, that retaining wall helps lessen that foundation height, softens the perceived building massing and height. The guidelines recommend that in areas where historic garages are generally detached, the new garages should appear detached. And that attached garages should be designed in such a way that they are located at traditional locations behind the rear plane of the house, and otherwise not visible from the street. So what the applicant has done for all 3 proposals tonight is a attached garage, but it has the visibility from the street of being a detached garage. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the site plan view so you can see that. This is the driveway and here's the garage. So it is attached. It's not technically a semi-detached because it is attached through enclosed conditions, but it has the appearance of being detached to speak from the street, which is consistent with the intent of the guidelines. The overall height at 38 feet 6 inches is consistent with the preliminary COA. The applicant did heed the DRC's recommendation to reduce that foundation height. And the materials are consistent with the guidelines. You do see here that the prominent material is brick. You also have lap siding on the sides with a 5-inch reveal. Wood porch railings, fiber cement panels here at this partially enclosed upper story porch here. The trim is also fiber cement. Asphalt shingle roofing, and with metal roofing at the porch on the front. The brick, the lap siding, and the window specifications have not been submitted to staff. The use of a smooth face cement board would be appropriate, or siding rather. The paired internal brick chimneys that you see here are common to a federal style. And as a result of the desired height by the applicant at 38 feet, I believe that the roof pitch is steep, and it causes the chimney stacks to appear much shorter than you would see on a historical equivalence. So a taller chimney would be recommended, and conversely may be required by code. And I believe that Mr. Gore can speak to that more about the use of those if that would be required by code. But an additional 1.5 feet would give the appearance of a more historically appropriate configuration of the chimney with the roof itself. The guidelines would recommend that chimneys be compatible in size, height, and massing to existing chimneys on neighboring houses, and that those architectural features be compatible. Now, the raised brick row lock and coursing that you see on the garage, this is the view of the garage from the street, isn't typical to historical equivalents as recommended by the guidelines. Typically, the zoning ordinance would require that buildings have a foundation height of 18 inches. Now, this is the slab on grade portion of the building. And so it will be recommended in the spirit of the guidelines that this portion of the building have a lower foundation cladding on the outside in order to be more consistent with what you'd see on historical equivalents. And I've spoken to the applicant about that, and I believe the applicant is perfectly comfortable with that, but I did want to mention it here. It would also reinforce the appearance of the garage as detached from the street. The proportion and rhythm of window openings are consistent with the guidelines, which recommend maintenance of rhythm and spacing of window and door openings. of adjacent structures. The applicant added fenestration to the rear elevation at the DRC's recommendation, as you may be able to see some of these advantages from the downtown view. Building coverage is at 39%, which is not consistent with the guidelines. The guidelines recommend that maximum building coverage not exceed 35% in specified residential districts, including R1, where the subject property is located. So with that, staff must recommend denial of the proposed construction because of the lot coverage being proposed at 4% more than recommended by the guidelines. However, if issued a COA, the following would need to apply. The paired internal brick chimney heights must be altered to better meet the intent of the guidelines, as well as to meet any applicable code requirements. The raised brick and rear lock design at the bottom of the garage needs to be lowered to no more than 18 inches for better consistency with the guidelines. The lap siding must be wood or smooth face cementitious material. Then the window specifications must be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a permit. And the guidelines also state that one should match surrounding historic masonry in width of mortar joints, size, scale of bricks, color, etc. And if issued a COA, the specifications for that retaining wall must be submitted to the preservation planner or the commission prior to issuance of a building permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant wish to comment on the application?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your time tonight. Thank you, Amanda, for your synopsis. I'm Chad Gore, representing Mike Ford Builders, the applicant. Amanda did a good job as usual, kind of recapping everything. So, and I think we were able to address a lot of the, if not all of the comments from the DRC. And I don't think we take any exception to the staff's comments, save one. So I'll leave myself open for some questions about any of that specific stuff, but I do want to make sure to address the lot coverage. That's something we hope to ask your consideration for an exception to. There's a few things that we think are in our favor in asking that for that exception. One, the 35% coverage just isn't quite sufficient to accommodate the kind of houses we think are going to be appropriate for the project. Some things we want to make sure we are able to include are like masters on the main level, covered porches on the front, covered entries, covered porches on the back, and that stuff all just kind of adds up so quick. You run out of coverage, before you know it. But in this particular project, I think we've got some conditions that maybe help us get to that. This isn't a singular infill application. We're talking about kind of, that's between two historic properties, for instance. So it's more of a development unto itself and a little kind of a bubble down there. And within that development, there's already a lot of platted open space. I think if my quick calculations, I came up with 7 acres of open space, both on the, across the street from these lots that we're talking about, and then also behind the lots toward the river. If you did some kind of dumb math, this may not make any sense, but if I took this same footprint, for instance, and built it on every one of those lots, if I had 19 of these exact same houses, there'd only be 14% of building on this whole development, if that makes sense. Something like 14%. It was quick math, but I thought that was worth noting. Also, and maybe it's appropriate to look at the site plan as we talk about this, but our intention, and I'm kind of talking about this in a general sense because this is an exception. We're going to ask your consideration on all 3 of these lots and almost all of the lots going forward. And so you can see how can you back up maybe 3 slides to the actual shows the driveway and there, that one. Thank you. You can see how all these, generally speaking, we hope to set them up this way with the driveway going down one side, excuse me. And the main mass of the house there is then 37 or 38 feet wide, and that leaves about 22 or 23 feet over to the next house. So these houses are set up so that the main mass of them really is not taking up the entire width of the lot. We're left with some open space then between the lots as you drive down the street. So, and in the same vein, the lots themselves are oriented, perpendicular to the street. So the bulk of the mass of the house is, perpendicular to the street. So it's not as apparent from the road. And then I know that there's also a landscape surface ratio requirement that zoning will have, and we are able to meet that requirement. It's kind of an aside, but we are going to be able to meet that requirement based on using pervious pavers on the driveway. So that's a good thing. I remember there was some concern at DRC when we were discussing this item about, the caution of approving an exception for, 39% today. And then, the next one comes back at, 40, and the one after that, maybe 41. And I want to take the chance to commit to you all that we're not going to send you an application that's any greater than, 39.9%. I think that's something we are comfortable working with on the rest of all of these lots. And there's probably going to be a few of the bigger lots where we won't have any trouble being closer to 35% and not have to push it, even all the way up to 39.9. So with those things in mind, we hope you'll consider that as an exception in this case, in these cases, as it were. But I'm also happy to answer any questions about any of the other things that we have talked about at DRC or that Amanda has presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Are there any citizens that wish to comment on this application? If not, commissioners, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion. This is Lisa.
All right, Lisa, thank you.
I move to deny issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed new construction based on staff analysis and recommendation dated December 14th, 2020.
All right, is there a second to that?
Mr. Chair, this is Brian. I second that.
All right. Comments, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, real quick. So as I'm looking at this, I would agree with the applicant. I think in this case, if you look at this lot, it could easily be 30, 40 feet deeper, which would easily meet the 35%. And the perception when you're out there is that it's going to be, have that open space behind it. So I don't have a concern with the 39% in this case because of that, and would support the application.
Thank you. Others? Other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Ken. Ken?
On sheet A4.1, where you transition from the masonry to the siding, I see.
You're muted, Ken. You're muted.
I said, I see hardly any plane change on that wall from the masonry to the siding.
Chad, do you want to comment on that?
That's right. The change in plane would just be the thickness of the material.
Other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Kelly.
Yes, as I look at this with the idea of how the preliminary was approved, I see this as sort of a pod unto itself. And I know Ms. Pierce has used that phrase before about other developments, in the way that it is, where the relationship is with the historic resources and how it kind of sits out separately, and you have to drive through this, 60s, 70s subdivision to get to it. And for that reason, I'm comfortable with the 39% lot coverage and going beyond what our guidelines state.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, do we know that the open space behind these will never have anything on them? Is that right? Because of the flood elevation?
Kelly Dennisfiller, I think, can comment to that.
It is permanent open space.
So it would never be developed?
No.
And what is the open space of this development? Do you know the percentage?
I don't know the percentage, but much of it is in the 100-year floodplain.
Okay.
Can I jump in there?
Yes, please.
Amanda, in the overview, there is the overall site plan. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be in the overview. Each of the packets has an overall site plan. I'm sorry, that's probably the wrong PDF, Amanda.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. It's a whole overview as well, and I keep opening the wrong one.
I think this is what he's talking about. Is this it, Chad? What?
Yes, sir. That's right.
This one.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things floating on my screen, so I'm sorry about that.
There we go.
This may illustrate what Ms. Pierce is asking about, and you probably can't read them there. And I'll confess to not having done the math myself, but you can see the three. There's open space 100, open space 101 that wraps all the way around lot 1 there. That reads 6.7 acres in open space 101. And that reads 0.5 acres in open space 100. So a little over 7 acres of open space that's platted into this development. And you and Planning Commission would have to approve to do anything different with, if I understand it correctly.
And then how much do you know how much is developed space?
No, but if we took an average of $7,500 feet per lot, square feet per lot, and multiplied it by, I guess 18 and 19 are bigger, but not as much. How about that? If you want to take just a minute, I could probably measure it, but it may not. I don't want to take up too much time.
Okay.
In terms of actual lots.
And I'll add, while Chad is measuring that the area that you see in open space is floodplain, and the lots that are buildable lots are configured to avoid the floodplain, because new lots, as part of our city requirements, have to be outside of the floodplain. So that open space lot is.
It appears from the picture that it's gonna look like it has a lot of green space. I think the most sensitive lots are gonna be 18 and 19, because they are gonna be closer to the existing neighborhood. So for that reason, I think I can support the extra coverage on the lots along the rear, 1 through 17.
And to jump in, I measured, again, I'm doing this kind of quick. I measured 170,000 square feet of lots, 1 through 19. And there's a little over 400,000 square feet of open space. And I'm not counting the road in either one of those.
Okay.
All right. Other questions?
Just quickly, this is Lisa. Just to emphasize that our guidelines have the 35% recommendation for R1 for a reason. And in this situation, even though I understand what the applicant is indicating, nevertheless, I think it's important for us to keep in mind that in future applications, they will also be asking for that extra building coverage, which will then increase the entire mass of the development. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I did want to note that Mr. Gore had mentioned the LSA requirements for the city. I just want to make sure everyone understands what that means. Landscape surface area.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Cover that.
Landscape surface area is the percentage of area on any buildable lot that is pervious versus impervious. So with R1, it's a little more strict. The applicant cannot exceed a 40% hardscape on the lots. The applicant is using some pervious pavers to help with the driveway, but I can assure you that no application can get a building permit if it's over 40% for the building itself. So that will help inform moving forward that, to Mr. Gore's point, no application would be eligible for a building permit regardless of historic zoning approval if it exceeds 40% buildable or enclosed hardscape area.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, can I make one other comment?
Sure.
So what Lisa was saying, I wanted to refer to that. Because of the way the lots are set up, the applicant could build forward of the lot as far, close to the street as he can, and then as wide as he can within the setbacks. So the perceived 35% versus 39% versus 40% would only be seen really from the air. You wouldn't see it from the street. You wouldn't perceive this as a more open community because they've developed 35% on that lot. So that's another reason why I don't see it as a concern in this application. We're not, generally the 35%, the intent was not to overbuild the lots in the historic downtown. This being a unique new development, I think it's a different application.
Thank you, Mike. Other comments? We're ready to vote then. This is a motion to deny the application. So please respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker?
No.
Susan Besser?
Aye.
Jeff Carson?
No.
Mike Hathaway?
No.
Brian Laster?
No.
Lisa Marquardt?
Aye.
Mary Pierce?
No.
Ken Scalf?
No.
And Jim Roberts, no. So the motion fails. Is there another motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I move to approve with conditions a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed new construction based on staff analysis and comments dated December 14th, 2020.
Okay. Any
Second.
Who is that? Mike?
That's me, yes, sir.
Thank you. Any discussion on that?
The only thing that I would like to hear some feedback about is the point that was made about the separation between the brick and the wood.
Chad, you want to respond to that?
I believe it's Mr. Scalf that made the.
Correct. That was right.
Are we looking for, is there a minimum in the guidelines as far as the separation at, I certainly don't want to change change materials at an outside corner. I am comfortable, and there may be opinion that it's an appropriate change of material where the roof forms change. And so we have a gable there. And while, the gable side, where the side facing gable changes to a rear facing gable, I find it an appropriate transition. If y'all are telling me that the guidelines say something different, it would be something I didn't know. I don't know that we have much opportunity exactly the way the floor plan's laid out to, just bump it out there. But I'm willing to hear suggestions if we think that's a problem.
Do you have any other comment on it, Mary?
I would just ask our architects on the commission if what their thoughts are on butting one against the other. Just bringing it in 6 inches, make it better. I'm open to just hear the discussion.
Ken Scalf, you raised it. You want to comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We prefer that materials change at an interior corner instead of an exterior corner. And obviously, you're talking about a plane change on the exterior from the brick to the siding of inches, if that. So that's just the concern, so that it doesn't look like it was, it looks like it's an addition.
Yeah, I agree. Just for the record, I agree with the idea of not wanting to change materials at an outside corner. I don't happen to see this as an outside corner along a plane, and where the roof changes, I think it achieves the same look. And I'm just speaking from my personal opinion, expertise, especially where the roof forms are changing. But I think, I'm looking at the floor plan as we talk about this, and I don't see a sort of easy break point there to remedy that. But I mean, I'd be willing to look at solutions. I don't see an easy one right off the bat. But my personal opinion is it doesn't bother me. Obviously, I submitted it that way.
Oh,
So, Chad, would you mind explaining what this actually will look like as far as the relationship of the siding to the brick? How far the siding will stick out beyond the brick? I think that would be helpful for the
Okay, so the brick actually sticks out 3 to 4 inches from the face of the siding. So effectively, there is a 4-inch outside corner there. Now, you know, but is material, the wall itself is in the same plane, but the outside face of the material, there's a 4-inch to 3-inch difference. Does that help? Is that kind of what you were asking about?
And that's the brick sticking out forward of the siding.
Yeah, maybe you can actually go to the floor plan, sheet A1. And if you zoom way in there in the kitchen, or I'll tell you what, it might even be better on the second floor. Now that I'm looking at it, sorry. You zoom way in there by the utility room. And you can see this very small offset, 4 inches of an offset there. That's where the brick transitions to siding.
Okay. Mary, does that help?
And, you know, yeah.
Yeah, Mary too, I would argue that if this is on the front of the house, it might be a different condition, but it's on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've had times where we've allowed or approved just a piece of trim to create a break, you know, and some of these that are on sides, long sides. So I think you'll see enough of a shadow line that it'll appear as a break.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Sounds like we're ready to vote then. So this is a motion to approve as presented. So please respond then as I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
No.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
No.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scow.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. Okay. We're ready for the next one, which is lot 10.
Okay, so for the record, that was 7-2 passing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And that is not, we need an overall vote. That was for the amendment, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, never mind. I
Thank you.
misunderstanding. It was this, there were 2 different votes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, when we approved it that way, did we include the staff comments?
Yeah.
as Conditions? Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Baker did include the,
Yes.
the staff comments. Okay, everyone ready for item number 6?
Yes, ma'am. That's lot 10.
Okay, I am not going to reiterate my comments on the overview or
Thank
the
you.
location, but I will speak specifically to the house. You can see on the screen the location of lot 10 at the immediate intersection. Now go ahead and go to this view here. So the applicant's requesting a COA for the construction of a 1.5 story principal structure with garage at this location, 155 Splendor Ridge Drive. This was not discussed at DRC. The applicant did bring forward an item for lot 10 at DRC, but after consultation with staff, the applicant has opted to propose an entirely new elevation for this property. So while we did discuss lot 10, it was not this elevation set. Again, all the preliminary COA conditions apply with the maximum height of 39 feet and a 2.5 story scale. So at this location, the applicant's proposing a construction of a Tudor Revival style residence with a cross gable roof form, a 2-bay porch, which is partially uncovered. You can see the porch location here where this gentleman is standing. And the attached garage at the rear of the property. A 2-level porch is also proposed on the rear elevation. Again, the setbacks are defined by the development, 15 feet in the front. The applicant has utilized a 1.5 story and that is as viewed from the street that is appropriate for the historic district It's also consistent with that COA, was previously approved. The reason the applicant has proposed an entirely new elevation set for this location is, as I showed earlier, this is a pretty pivotal location in entering the development. It's really dead on with the intersection. And so with this being the highest point in the elevation, as I explained previously, the use of a 1.5 story is such a location helps to lessen the perceived height as one enters that subdivision, and the implementation of the retaining wall at that street level, along with the use of the porch, lessens the foundation height as viewed from street grade to FFE. Again, the applicant is utilizing an attached garage that is located at the rear, so it has vantage points that be detached from the street view. The overall proposed height at 38 feet 4 inches is consistent with the development's preliminary COA. The materials of the proposed construction are listed as brick for the main front. A lap siding with the side elevations of a 5-inch maximum reveal, iron porch post, rails and spindles, wooden shutters, and asphalt shingle roofing. The brick, the lap siding, and the window specifications have not been provided. The use of a smooth-based cementitious board is appropriate. So it just says lap siding. So anytime I mention that, it's because it doesn't say it's hardy or it doesn't say it's wood, that kind of thing. The proportion and rhythm of the window openings are consistent with the guidelines, which recommend maintenance of rhythm and spacing of adjacent structures. The building coverage here again is 39.8%, which is not consistent with the guidelines, as that recommends 35% in this specified residential zone. So with that, the application is recommended to be denied by staff only because of the lot coverage, the design, and there are no other issues demonstrated here with the proposed design. If issued a COA, this lap siding must be wood or a smooth face cementitious board. The windows must have historic profile and dimension and be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to a permit. And the specifications for the brick color and texture for both the house and the retaining wall must be submitted to staff for review and approval in light of guidelines as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad, comments on this?
Thank you again, Amanda, for your synopsis. Just wanted to, I guess, expand on what Amanda explained with submitting this new elevation. Not an attempt at all to sneak one in, but so I appreciate y'all seeing this without it having been at DRC. It really has to do with hearing a lot of commentary from the DRC about the, making sure that we didn't have a street full of fully, 2-story massing and just overpowering the street. And so I wanted to make sure that we showed some commitment to trying to mitigate that as much as possible. And what we'll see is, if you remember, we talked about Lot 9 and Lot 10 at the DRC, and what we've really done is pushed the design from Lot 10 over to Lot 11 and inserted this Tudor-esque kind of story and a half. After some studying, I was happy to find that we could accommodate that kind of massing and still get what we would call a marketable house on these lots. So we want to be able to do this just to tell the story. We want to be able to do this, 1 in every 3 lots maybe. So I wanted to make sure we got this shape of a design in for you to at least comment on and hopefully be able to approve, even though we didn't get to talk about it at the DRC. Obviously, we're asking again for the exception to the 35% lot coverage for all the same reasons. Other than that, I'd be happy to just talk with you about any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Are there any citizens that wish to comment on this application? Hearing none, we need a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chair, this is Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
I move to approve issuance of a COA for the proposed new construction based on staff analysis and recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. It's Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Comments?
My comment is it possible, Chad, if you'll look at the left elevation, where that just goes back to wood from the small brick Tudor looking piece. I'm thinking of a couple of Tudor houses we've looked at tonight, and it's common to have brick, and then a dormer with wood above it. Would it be possible to add that kind of element so we just don't keep repeating that one addition configuration?
So let's go back to I think I can talk about that, yeah. So on the left elevation.
Yes, sir.
Amanda, right? We're talking about the side that we can see the chimney on the side there, right?
Right.
Mary, I think what you're talking about is carrying the brick all the way around the first floor?
Or no, or maybe just yes, all around the first floor.
I think that's very possible, yes. Yeah. And I think, that makes sense to me. To sort of help differentiate the way the massing comes together.
I would offer that as an amendment then.
All right, the amendment is to add brick on the first floor
Of the left.
of the left and right. I can't hear it.
I would suggest the left elevation and then that might work pretty good over there. And then probably underneath the porch on the rear elevation.
What Chad is saying is what I'll offer as the amendment.
Would you mind clarifying why that is again? I just want to make sure it's clear for the record, and I'm not quite sure it is.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Okay, the reason I'm recommending that is to offer variety within this neighborhood and also to be more consistent with the inspiration of a Tudor house. But I think the overriding thing is to not have every side elevation be brick and change to wood, but to offer variety.
So the amendment is to make the lower floor on the left side into brick? Is that correct? Okay, what about the right and rear?
Well, Chad had said what he thought would work, and if he will say that, that would be what I would propose.
Certainly, I would say the lower level on the left elevation, the lower level on the main mass of the rear elevation, not the garage.
Okay.
And then the lower level of the main mass on the right elevation. Again, not the garage.
All right, thank you.
I think I've got it.
And looking at that, I can concur with that as well, certainly.
Chairman, I'll second that. This is Mike.
All right, thank you, Mike. Okay, any comments on the amendment?
Before we do that, I just wanted to point out something on that same elevation. Everybody realizes.
Which elevation?
The left-hand elevation.
Okay.
Everybody realizes that gabled element, when it hits the eave of the roof below, there is no roof there. That is nothing more than trim applied there because those walls are all in the same plane.
Again, in this case, I think the way our upper level is designed, I'm pretty sure if we go to the A2 there, I think I can shrink the study flex room and the bunk room a little bit and bring that wall so that it's not stacked directly below. The bonus room would stay the same size it is, but I think I can help at least on part of that.
That's a really good point, Ken. Thank you for bringing that up.
It sounds like a committee, though.
Mr. Chair, does that have to be a different amendment or can
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so.
As long as.
I'm fine with adding Ken's comments onto my amendment.
Yes, the change in footprint would be nominal. It'd be like an inch perhaps, like in setting. It wouldn't be something that would be readily.
We're really just talking about the upper level, I think.
Right.
And then would Mike concur with that change to the amendment?
He would.
Mr. Chair, can you repeat the amendment?
The amendment as I've got it, as I've written it down, is to add brick for variety on the first floor only on the left, right main mass and the rear main mass. Is that what you got, Amanda? Everybody understand that amendment?
Well, are you not adding the inset now that Ken proposed? No.
I am.
I would just.
I'm not. I think I think Chad's got that.
Well, if there's an expectation that the bricks still stand out further than the siding, I think that needs to be clear. And it sounds like Ms. Pierce agreed with Mr. Scout's point, and as did Mr. Hathaway. So I will note that on the COA.
Okay. So is everybody clear? Ready to vote on the amendment? So Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
Jim Roberts. Aye. So the amendment passes 9-0. All right, we're back to any more comments on the original application as amended? Yeah.
This is Susan. I would just like to comment on how well designed all three houses are. And even though I'm not supporting the lot coverage, I do support the designs. And I just want to make that clear because they've been really well done, Chad. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, and that's a great comment. They are well done, well thought out. I appreciate the adjustments made from design review. Okay, any other comments on the main motion as amended? Then let's vote. Please respond then when I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Bester.
No.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
No.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you all again. Thank you for your discussion on that. That's first time you've seen that, so I appreciate your consideration.
All right. Now we're on to the next one. Item 7, which is lot 11. Amanda?
Okay, so I pulled up lot 11. This is 161 Splendor Ridge Drive is proposed. You can see that location here, just to the left of the central lot as you're entering the subdivision. Left is viewed from your car. Okay. Again, all the previous comments apply as far as context and the preliminary COA as approved for height and scale. The applicant is proposing construction of what I would call an asymmetrical colonial revival style residence at this location. This set of elevations was previously discussed at the design review committee, all that for lot 10. As Mr. Gore indicated, it's now proposed for lot 11. It has a hipped main roof, a front gable projection and box bay being here. It also has side cross gables and a single bay pedimented porch located here. And then it also has the attached garage at the end of the driveway with a 2-level porch at the rear. Again, the setbacks are the same as previously approved. The streetscape indicates from Mr. Gore's plan, which I do want to comment to, that the site planning information provided by the applicant has been very thorough. It made my role in reviewing much easier, and I really do appreciate that. It's very clear from the site plan that the the elevation change is 6 feet from the street to the FFE, but again, utilizing the 2-foot retaining wall and going upward. Actually, this one's a little less. I think this is 5 feet 5 inches from street grade. So the applicant's done a really good job of trying to mitigate the foundation height issue, given the topographical issues that are on the property that cannot be mitigated. This proposal is more of a 2.5-story form. Might read as 2 from this street. It is appropriate for Franklin Road Historic District. The DRC did recommend that the applicant break up the roof line along the side elevations in order to lessen any perceived length and the mass of the facades. I'm happy to report that the applicant did do that. I'm going to pull up these elevation sets so you can see. This is the right side. Utilizing the cross gables really do help in breaking up that massing. Again, this is right side. Here's the left side. So you can see that it does break up the facade quite a bit. The proposed materials are listed as lap siding with a 4-inch reveal. This is a tighter reveal. The brick and split face CMU concrete foundations. The 5-pon porch railing. 5-pon is a material that's more of a composite material that's emulative of wood. I did ask the applicant to provide more information about that, which I did present to the commissioners via email, and I'm happy to speak more to that if you would like. A shaker style fiber cement panel that you see here at the, at the box bay. I'm on the wrong elevation. Right here at the box bay. And then asphalt shingle roofing with rubber roofing at the very, very top of the hip. This is very flat, has a very, very little slopes. There's rubber membrane proposed there. The use of a smooth face cement board siding would be appropriate on infill construction. Porches are generally recommended by the guidelines to utilize wood or use brick or metal if appropriate for the architectural style. The use of 5-pon material must be considered by the Historic Zoning Commission for compatibility with wood. So I did provide that information so you can make that decision accordingly. Metal framed awnings are not generally recommended for garages based on previous approvals, as they are designed they're recommended to be designed simply, you see this here, and to utilize components used typically on historic equivalents. Alternatively, the use of a heavy trim board here, or even a light fixture, might help provide the articulation and lessen any perceived mass of this overall garage form. I'm going to go ahead and go to this page so you can actually see the garage elevation. So there is a metal awning proposed here, a bracketed metal awning. It's come up in some previous applications and was not approved. The proportion and rhythm of openings are all consistent with the guidelines, as you can see throughout the elevation site. The applicant did add fenestration to the rear elevation per DRC's recommendation, as that elevation may have some advantage from the downtown side of the river. Again, the design is entirely appropriate with the exception of this couple of items I noted. Staff is recommending denial based on the proposed building coverage, which is 39.3%, exceeding the maximum building coverage guideline recommendation of 35% by 4.3%. If issued a COA, the lap siding must be wood or smooth faced for cementitious for consistency with the guidelines. Window specifications must meet guidelines, be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to permitting. The brick color and texture for both the house and the retaining wall must also be submitted for consideration in light of the guidelines. And the applicant must either utilize wood for the porch railing or otherwise seek approval from the Historic Zoning Commission tonight for the use of 5-pon. So I would ask that with any recommendation or motion rather, the person making the motion comments specifically on that element. And then the applicant must remove that metal awning over the garage doors and utilize either a heavy trim board or a light fixture or any other element the Historic Zoning Commission may choose to request there. Thank you.
Chad, comments?
Thank you again, Amanda. Again, we're asking for an exception to the 35%, but I won't try to address that again. I just want to speak real quick about the garage awning and the pie pond. I'm totally okay with either of the solutions Amanda provided instead of the awning. I think there was a gooseneck light or some heavy trim. Either of those would be fine with me. I would like, maybe as this project progresses, if we can talk about solutions other than those, just for some variety, excuse me, we're going to have the same, garage sort of outbuilding on almost all these lots. So it's probably something we want to talk about doing a few different things than having the same sort of treatment every time. And I'm also, it may be something we have to, maybe I just end up working through it with staff, but redesigning that awning in a way that is more appropriate to the guidelines and yet still be some sort of an awning, just as an alternative detail. But again, I'm okay with either one of the ones in this case that Amanda has suggested. It just happens to be, I think, the same thing we're doing on the other two. And then the pie pond, just in case there are some of you that aren't familiar with the product, it's really made to look just like wood, paints up exactly like wood. And, and you don't have maintenance issues with it. It's not going to split and come apart and rot and fall off over the years. So it's something we use a lot. These are pictures of our projects, save the one with the actual railing. These are pictures of our projects, and we use it all the time, and it's pretty handy. So happy to answer any questions you have about it. It's not vinyl. We're not talking about something that has a predetermined color and has a it's not shiny like vinyl would be. It paints up and really looks just like wood. So that's all I have. Thank you. I'll answer questions.
Okay, any citizens which comment on this application? Otherwise, we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve an issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed new construction based on staff analysis and comments dated December 14th, 2020.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second, and I've got a comment.
Okay, and would either of you talk about the pie pond?
Well, I admittedly am not super familiar with the material since I am not in the construction business, but it does seem to me that this is a newer material that's possibly been created and introduced after the guidelines have been created. And based on the information that's been provided to us by Ms. Rose and Mr. Gore, it feels appropriate, especially considering this is new construction.
Okay, we'll just make that as an amendment when we get down the road here a little bit, if someone wants to make it. So Barry, you had a comment. Did you have another comment?
I
do. Go ahead.
The drawing that we got, and then the drawing that's on A4 of the dormer on the front. This house to me is inspired by a four-square. I believe that the dormer window configuration is just a bit too, I don't know, busy is the word for that type of an architecture. And I would like to see it be simplified. It can be brought back to staff.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Pierce. I forgot. I mentioned that this is a 2.5-story structure, but the streetscape rendering doesn't show the dormer on top. So bringing that up is a good point.
So do I need to offer that as an amendment?
I think yes.
I would offer an amendment that the dormer on the front elevation be brought back to staff for simplification.
I'll second that. This is Susan.
Thank you, Susan. Front door, okay. I'm writing. Okay, any comments on that amendment?
Mr. Chair, the only comment that I would make is if you drive down 3rd Avenue South, you see a number of houses with that type of window configuration. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
I agree. I think the dormer is totally appropriate. But if you look, when you drive down 3rd Avenue, they're a bit more simple in their window configuration. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that amendment?
Just for staff clarification to make sure I'm understanding Ms. Pierce's proposed amendment. When you say window configuration, are you meaning like the diamond shape in the center?
Yes. It's too busy. I think that's what she said at first.
Busy, not get rid of the dormer. The dormer is totally appropriate.
Oh, yes.
Style home.
I just wanted to clarify for the record. I think I understood what you're saying, but it's not about changing the configuration of the window. It's more about changing the detailing on said configuration.
Yes.
Okay, of that piece of the, we're ready to vote on that piece of the amendment, on that amendment. So just respond when I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Marion Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce. Aye.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. All right, that's an amendment. Do we have another amendment as it relates to the, what do you call it? Fry pond, whatever the product is.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
My comment about Five Pond would be that, of course, this is a new construction and a new development. And I'm not sure it really matters that they use Five Pond. One thing about what we didn't like about some of the vinyl products is the dimensions and the scaling of it. It looks like this product tries to address that issue. But that being said, I don't know that I would support that in the historic overlay for historic properties. But in this instance, I would support it.
All right, thank you. You want to make that then? Is that are you making the motion on the amendment?
Yes.
Can I make a comment before we move on to that motion or that amendment?
Yeah.
And that is that according to what was presented, the Five Pond is also being used for the railing on the terraces, correct?
That's right. That's what I see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Brian's got a motion to use the Five Pond on the where shown on the drawings. Is there a second to that amendment?
I will second.
I'll second.
Ken. What is, Chad, what is that material?
It's a composite. I want to say it's like solid PVC. You've seen some, which makes it sound like plastic, but it's not. It doesn't appear to be a vinyl product at all. It's I don't know how to give you any chemical composition of it, but
it's a solid product. It's a
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if you wanted to get comfortable with it before we present more of them. It's all anybody uses in new construction for details like this.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make one more comment about that. I was in another city that has a historic district, and they were building a new house on the corner. And the owner was in the yard, and I commented about how the wood brackets that he had under the eaves. And he said, well, that's not wood, it's Five Pond. So that's the only reason I bring that up.
That's good. All right. That's good. Okay. Any other comments on this amendment?
A second.
Ken?
Thank you.
Any other?
I'm sorry. I'm going to add one more thing just for everybody's understanding. There are 2 or 3 manufacturers. It's like saying Xerox, right? Five Pond. There are 2 or 3 manufacturers that make exactly the same product. Five Pond, Spectus, and I can't come up with the other ones off the top of my head. But we're saying Five Pond, but what we might install might be the exact same piece from a company called Spectus that really does the same thing as Five Pond. Just want to make sure that's clear.
It's like saying Hardy, but it could be different.
That's right. We might not be putting Hardy brand product up, but it's exactly the same material. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I want to add a lot of that. As long as it's not the extruded, shiny material, which is the balustrade on the house I live in.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do think it would be great if Mr. Gore could bring a sample to Amanda, just so that way we have our preservation planner has seen, touched, felt it, and we can feel comfortable in future proposals.
Well, let me just suggest this. Why don't we add to the amendment, if it's okay with Brian and Ken, that it be a sample brought to staff for approval.
Yes.
I'll add that.
Brian, are you okay with that?
I am. Please add that.
And Ken's okay. He's giving me the high sign.
Alternately, could I take Amanda to a site where it's been installed and finished? Because it's obviously going to present better after it's painted as well. I think we might have a sample here, but sometimes we don't have the
That's fine with me.
Okay.
It's something I can see and touch and feel. I think that's what, to Ms. Baker's point.
Sure.
So I can assure them that it's a quality product that is worthy of their approval on future applications.
Okay, then everybody's got so it'll be Five Pond or like as brought to staff for approval. If everybody understands that amendment. So please respond then as I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Bester.
Aye.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
Aye.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
And Jim Roberts. Aye. So then we're back to the main motion as amended twice. Does anybody have any additional comments on that? All right. Then please respond as I call your name. Kelly Baker.
Aye.
Susan Besser.
No.
Jeff Carson.
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye.
Brian Laster.
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt.
No.
Mary Pierce.
Aye.
Ken Scalf.
Aye.
Jim Roberts. Aye. So that's 7-2, Amanda, and both of the amendments were 9-0. So that is it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you again for a very good.
Well, thank you all in triplicate for all your work and your input. If all this goes well, hopefully we'll look forward to working with you for 16 more of them.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other items tonight, Amanda?
I do want to note that there is a design review committee meeting next Monday, the 21st at 4:00. This will be via Zoom. I believe that it's very likely that meetings into January will be Zoom as well, but that has not been confirmed by the governor. And that likelihood is really just me saying so based on the trajectory of COVID right now. But as of right now, the only approved Zoom meeting we have in the future, the 21st at 4:00. I'll get all that information to you shortly. It looks like the agenda will be probably about 5 or 6 items. We are hopeful, depending on how many items end up being on the agenda, that we'll have a brief discussion on signage types in the historic district as a discussion to help inform staff as we work through our proposed historic district design guidelines update. Kelly, is there anything you want to add to that? Okay, thank you.
And again, thanks to Mike Hathaway and Jeff Carson. You've been a great addition to our team here, both of you.
Mr. Chair, I think before we adjourn, I'd also just like to say that we, are so sad about the passing of Pearl Bransford. And she was such a fan of historic zoning and tried so much to support it. So I just like to say that.
Good comment, Mary. And she was. Be a hard one to replace. Any other comments from folks? Other than, I just want to say thank you to all of you. This has been an interesting time since March to be on Zoom. I don't know what we'll do if we all get back in the same room together, but this has been, I really do appreciate the support and the participation, and I greatly appreciate the staff support. So they do a wonderful job preparing us for these meetings, and especially the chair. I don't know what I would do without my script. But I do great thanks, and I wish to each and every one of you a Merry Christmas. And with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Barry and Kelly. So please, Kelly Baker,
Aye.
Susan Besser,
Aye.
Jeff Carson,
Aye.
Mike Hathaway.
Aye, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Brian Lester,
Aye.
Lisa Marquardt,
Aye.
Mary Pierce,
Aye.
Ken Scalf,
Aye.
and I certainly will aye. So thank you. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.